Hello. This is one of those albums that I remember from when I was younger, when I was a teenager, of seeing and thinking, oh, maybe I'd like to buy that, but it wasn't really, it wasn't at the top of my list of albums that I wanted to get back then. You know, you had money was a lot tighter when you're a teenager, and CDs were a lot more expensive, and so you can't just be buying things willy nilly. And so before you bought something, you had to be sure that you wanted it or have been recommended it by people or something extraordinary to make kind of push you to buy it. And so Cake was an album that I would have liked to have bought, but I never did. And so I got this second hand in the last 2 or 3 years. I can't remember exactly when, but I do remember where. It was at a shop for 50 cents. And I was like, happy to find it, happy to get it. And I got home and I put it on and actually quite distinctly remember playing this for the first time and being disappointed. I'm not sure if that's the right word, disappointed, but I didn't like it. I don't like it. I had, I guess, kind of high hopes for it because, although I shouldn't have, really, because now I think about it, the only song I liked that I've heard of theirs, and I've heard a few of their songs over the years, obviously just their singles. That song, The Distance, which is track 2 on this, and was the first song I ever heard of theirs, and it came out I think in '96. This album came out in 1996. I just realized, is that Capricorn? Is that the same Capricorn? I think it is. I think that Capricorn was a label in the '70s that put out a lot of southern rock. Maybe it's a different Capricorn. I'm pretty sure that's the same logo though, with that font. Anyway, who cares? I thought they would have disappeared by the '90s. But anyway, not only southern rock, but also apparently whatever the hell this was. I when I heard it for the first time, it wasn't as I was like, it was just boring and kind of repetitive and almost like I just wanted to turn it off. And when I buy things for the first time, I always listen through at least once to them. And I'd say the majority of things I listen through to, I think, yeah, I'd listen to that again. If it's really awful, like completely a kind of genre of music that it's, unlistenable, then I'll just kind of put it in a box to get rid of. This was like, I don't like this. But I thought, well, I don't want to get rid of it because I don't know why. Why? Because I guess I wanted to give it another chance. And I'd say I've probably listened to it through another 2 or 3 times over the last 2 years. And I can safely say nothing's changed. I don't like this album. What is it? It's kind of like I don't even know what you'd call it. Hang on, I'll look and see what they say on this. See, the genre descriptor on Wikipedia I find is always so they say alternative rock, funk rock. Hey, it is the same Capricorn. Capricorn was an independent record label. Capricorn Records is often credited by music historians as creating the southern rock genre. Wow, so not just putting out, but creating it. Was it? So it still exists. I wonder who else they put out. If they're putting out Cake. Anyway, who cares? They say alternative rock, funk rock, alternative country, and Latin rock. I don't know, could you even really call this alternative rock? It has little elements. I'd say that the kind of the Latin influence, it's like that, was that norteño music? It's kind of like, they use that kind of, that rhythm. Like polka music uses that same kind of rhythm in all the music. I don't know the terms for how the rhythm is constructed or the numbers or whatever, but And Norteño music has its own rhythm as well in all their songs. I'm not saying that this has got that, but it kind of reminds me a lot of that. And they say it's Latin rock. That, I guess maybe it's the trumpet or whatever it is. I think the trumpet that's played throughout the songs is kind of reminds me a lot of Mexican Latin music. But it kind of is a bit, how can I put it? Almost like a kind of like joke music. Anytime a band does like a hip hop song, a band that's clearly not a hip hop act and doesn't really have any hip hop elements in their music, and then they do a song like almost like a jokey white man rap song. And I don't mean white rap as in like Eminem or even Vanilla Ice. I mean as in your 45-year-old uncle getting up drunk to do karaoke and he chooses to do some like hip hop, hippie to the hip hop, that kind of stuff. That kind of white person rapping, like doing it, intending it to be a joke, intending for it to be lame. Whenever bands do that, you always think, well, they don't really sound serious. And all this, yeah, it kind of sounds like kind of jokey in an ironic way. I guess it's kind of got of that age, that kind of 90s irony. But is that, well, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But it's just, I just feel it's very kind of bland and, like I said, quite repetitive and boring. I feel that the guys' vocals, especially, are very one-dimensional. Like they described somewhere I saw it as deadpan. But the thing is, he sings almost all the songs in exactly the same tone, and he's got no, like he's almost not a singer. It's almost anyone could get up there and do what he's doing. I wanna do. It's like and I'm not saying that someone has to have an amazing talent or multiple octave range to sing. I like lots of singers who aren't like that, but I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. In saying that, how many albums do you think this sold? Fashion Nugget by Cake, released in 96, kind of was big, at least down here in New Zealand, big 97. If I was to say, well, if you were to guess, if someone asked me that, I would say, I don't know, 500,000, maybe at the very top, 1,000,000 worldwide. I was shocked to see they sold 2 million albums in the US alone, and probably another million or 500,000 worldwide. And I think the album after this also went platinum. The one that had that fucking awful song, the short, what is it, short skirt and long jacket. I want a girl with a short. And that song is exactly, it's more of the same. Like the kind of like a pastiche of like 70s kind of. I feel I don't know enough about this kind of music to say what they are not stealing, but taking the influences from. Like the country and a little bit of funk and a little bit of kind of a soft rock and whatever else and Latin stuff. But it's just that song sounds exactly the same as the stuff on this. So the fact that in 1996, 1997, they managed, you think what was big in 96, 97? 96, I guess it was kind of the post-grunge era. I guess that's kind of that weird intermediary period where nothing really stood out. I guess kind of R&B and hip hop and kind of pop music in general, like boy groups, boy bands, or like the Spice Girls, they were kind of in the forefront of mainstream music. But in terms of rock, I guess it was that kind of era of, like I said, post-grunge, but the song I always think that of kind of that encapsulates that 96, 97, early 98 is the Paranoia, paranoia, everybody's coming to get me song, the Harvey Danger flag poster, that kind of music. There was a bunch of kind of song bands like that, kind of like I said, post grunge, alternative, but more upbeat than the early '90s stuff. And so I guess you could say also the early days of new metal, 96, 97. Like Korn had released their debut in 94, and then I think Life is Peachy was 96. $3 Bill by Limp Bizkit was 97. Adrenaline by the Deftones was 96, 97. 90, must be 96, because Around the Fur was 98. Well, maybe Adrenaline was 95. And then there were other bands as well, like lesser known bands who kind of. And so the fact that these guys came along with whatever the fuck this is, Latin alternative country polka, and managed to kind of sell 2 million albums and have their stuff played on the radio and on MTV to the point where me, down in the other side of the world, heard the stuff on the radio and saw it on TV and actually really liked that song, The Distance. They managed to do that. It's kind of quite strange, really. Quite bizarre. I guess music has always had these anomalies that have kind of not fit into the trend of the time, and we're kind of completely outside it, and managed to still attain some success. But still, what it is though is that at this time is obviously people heard the song "The Distance" on the radio, like I did, and thought this is a really great song. It's not a great song, a good song. And then they thought, well, I'm going to go buy that album. And they went and bought it. And if they were anything like me, not that I had this album at the time, they would have gone, no. What else? They did a copy of I Will Survive, the Gloria Gaynor song, although it's not a Gloria Gaynor. She's the most famous person to perform it, but she didn't write it. I can't remember the person who wrote it. I think it's 2 guys wrote it. And perhaps that's a cover as well. I don't know who. That's like a really old song, like the 50s or something, isn't it? Perhaps. Sad Songs and Waltzes is a Willie Nelson cover. So obviously you hear some country stuff. There's another song that's got a very country intro. I think it's She'll Come Back to Me. It's Coming Down is the one, I think it's Coming Down. It's either It's Coming Down or Nugget is the one with the really bad rapping. I think Frank Sinatra was a single as well. I gotta say, I just don't like, other than The Distance, maybe if I listen to it more, but I doubt it. It gave me such a visceral negative feeling on my first listen that's usually pretty accurate. Like I said, when you listen to an album for the first time, some blow you away the first time and you love it. Some, you know you like it, but you need more listens. Some you're kind of like, it's okay. And you know that, again, if you listen to it more, you'll probably kind of come to appreciate it more. Some are like, it's not really my thing. It's not terrible, but it's not really my thing. And then others are just like, I don't want to ever listen to this again. Even if it's within a genre that you usually like. There's lots of metal albums that I listen to and think, no, don't even have to listen to that again. But anyway, Condition is okay. And saying that, the first song, Frank Sinatra, skipped a couple of times when I played this evening. You can see some scratches there and smudges on the edge. You see a fingerprint there. That wouldn't have been me, because I never touch the shiny surface. So I had to kind of, sometimes that my CD player does that, where it skips the first song, or kind of jumps around, and so you've got to kind of track skip to track 2, let that start playing, and then go back to track one. And then it seems to play fine when you do that. So I don't know what that's all about. I think that's just the CD player. It's temperamental. So yeah, I'm just seeing if there's any other covers. Oh, there's the writers of I Will Survive. PJ, was that FJ? FJ, I think. Perrin and D. Picaris. Perhaps by J.M. Davis and O. Farris. And Sad Songs and Waltzes by W. Nelson, Mr. Willie Nelson. Who must be getting on, eh? Is he the last highwayman left? Johnny Cash is gone. Chris Christopherson just passed away just a few months ago, late 2024. Who else was in that band with him? Waylon Jennings, he's long gone. Was it just four of them? Wasn't there someone else? Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson. Was Waylon Jennings even in, actually? Was he even actually in the proper Highwaymen itself? Or was he just kind of associated with it? Highway. Sorry, this is kind of like a detour into, I don't know, he was. Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Cornell. So yes, Willie Nelson is the last man standing of the Highwaymen. He was born in 1933, so that makes him 91. Wow. 91, and I think he's still performing. Like, I'm pretty sure he hasn't retired. He's still going out there. I'm just going against 2020s. So he's still releasing albums. In 2024, Willie Nelson was featured in the Smoke Hour and Smoke Hour 2 interludes on Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album. And here it says, what was it? With the death of Chris Christopherson in September 2024, Nelson became the last surviving member of the Highwaymen. My dad liked the Highwaymen, I remember. As for the booklet, fairly sparse. In the 90s, usually you got at least kind of a staple in there to have a kind of multiple pages, but this is just the single leaf. There's the band. If you said to me, show me a person who personifies the sound of this band, I would say, well, that guy there with the goatee and this hat and some kind of fur jacket or something. He really looks like how this band sounds. The rest of them, well, they could just be any band, really. Vincent Di Fiore, Greg Brown. Greg Brown, he was the one who wrote The Distance. And Victor Damiani, he was the bass. The bass in this album is really forward in the mix. Usually, this is why you could say, well, this another reason why this doesn't really fit into the genre of alternative rock. Most rock music, the bass is pretty buried, really, isn't it? I guess, there's some bands where it stands out a little more. I think Nirvana kind of mixed it, so the bass was kind of forward in a lot of songs as well. But most modern rock music, 90s rock music, or even 80s, the bass was kind of playing root notes and kind of doing behind the guitar, whatever the chord movements the guitar was doing, and stuck to what, the rhythm of the drums. And this guy, he's all over the show though. His bass is really busy. He sounds like a very accomplished player, and very forward in the mix. The mix is kind of just sounds like a typical 90s production, quite dry, a little bit live sounding. Not sure if they did record it live, but the bass is super in the forefront. Sometimes it's kind of even over the top of the guitar, and so the first time I heard that, well, not the first time, I remember listening to that song, The Distance, when I was a teenager and thinking, wow, the bass is really cool on this. Just for the fact that you could actually hear it. You could actually hear quite clearly what the bass was doing. With so many rock songs, so I remember when I was a kid, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be listening for with the bass because it would be so far back in the mix. Like it was there, obviously. If they took it away, it would sound tinny, but you didn't really. It was hard to kind of pick it out to an untrained ear. But this guy's all over it. He's and not just that song, all over the album. He's quite prominent. I guess that's kind of again like that Mexican Latin thing. That some of that kind of music has the bass playing almost. I don't know how to describe it. Like in ska music or in reggae, how the bass sometimes plays the melody, was kind of playing a melody, whereas the guitar's doing the rhythm. They kind of swap the typical roles as they would be in a more traditional rock music. Maybe some Mexican music does that as well, where the bass is kind of much more melodic and kind of more, again, more busy. Anyway, what I was going to say is the guitarist and the bassist left the band after this album. The guitarist who wrote their most famous song and their most successful song, and probably got a lot of other writing credits. You can see Brown, Brown, Brown. He's not on every song, Brown, but he's on quite a lot of them. He's on about half the album. And then the bassist, who was again very instrumentally, very kind of prominent and recognizable in their sound, they left after this. So this album came out in '96. It kind of, I guess, took off in '96, '97. They sold 2 million albums. They were able to tour quite extensively throughout the US, and they went to Europe and I think some other parts of the world. Their songs are getting played on MTV and on mainstream rock radio. And like I said, they were popular enough that they were known down here in New Zealand. That must have been a pretty bad tour, that after the tour finished, the guitarist and bassist both left the band. Because when you think about it, especially this kind of music, the chance of finding fame and success as a musician are already so infinitesimally small that it's like a basketball player trying to get in, someone got playing basketball as a kid trying to get in the NBA. It's like that. I've heard some statistic before how difficult that is to do and how, it's, to get into the NBA, you're the elite of the elite of the elite. Well, I guess in music, it's not really so much a skill issue, but it's still difficult to do, to get. And I guess there's different gradations, but to get into a band that's not only selling tens of thousands of albums or hundreds of thousands of albums, but millions of albums, touring around the world, played on mainstream media around the world, you've reached the top of the mountain. You're not fucking U2 or the Rolling Stones, but you've still achieved more than 99.999% of bands will ever achieve. And the situation of the band is so untenable, the relationships, that you have to leave at the peak of your success. There must have been some bad shit going on between those guys and the rest of the band. That sounds crazy, because the album after this, that also sold 1 million albums, 1 million copies, and had some, again, singles that I've heard. So they must have done something. And it's not as though these guys, when you walk away from a band, like you could be like Ace Frehley and Peter Criss in Kiss. Although you could say, well, by the time they left, Kiss was on, the wheels were starting to fall off or had fallen off. And they didn't leave as much as they were kicked out. Although I guess that depends who you talk to. But regardless, they both had, Kiss were pretty huge from what I've heard. I wasn't alive at the time, but they were pretty huge, it sounds like. Everyone talks about how massive they were for a period. everyone knew the mate. It was like the Beatles. Everyone knew Gene, Paul, Ace, Peter. They had name recognition. And so for those guys, you'd think, well, they could walk away and at least have a chance at solo success. They didn't. They both fucking crashed and burned. But someone's probably gonna go, well, each really did this and this. No, not nowhere near anything. These guys, fucking, was it Greg Brown and Victor Damiani? No one's ever heard of them. No one's would reckon that those guys could walk into my house right now and I wouldn't know who they are. So the chances of them finding success after being in cake are even more infinitesimally small. Two bites of the apple? I don't think so. Or two bites of the cherry? What's the saying? It's not going to happen. Or very, very, of course it does happen, but it's very difficult and very rare, and it just sounds like you've put so much work in to get where you got to, and then you just want to throw it away. Maybe they absolutely hated the music. Maybe they disliked it as much as I do, and so they thought, well, I'm not going to stay in this band with this guy singing, looking like that, and I want to do my own thing. So yeah, I felt like I had something else to say about it, but I don't. Kind of, I guess it's interesting to me, more interesting than the music, because the music isn't interesting to me, but more interesting is that, like I said, its place in the musical history of the 90s. Not that it's kind of has some major landmark position or anything at all, but that's kind of interesting to me, that period I've talked about before, the kind of 90s music in general, but especially 90s rock, and how certain bands managed to achieve fame, the kind of one-hit wonders, like a band like, I don't know, like Nada Surf, where that song Popular. The bands that kind of were completely, like these guys, completely outside of anything else sound-wise, but still managed to sell millions of albums, and how they kind of fizzled out quite quick. Like, when was the last time you ever heard anything about Cake? Well, I could be completely wrong though. Maybe they're still selling out arenas around the world, though I doubt it. I don't think they've ever toured in New Zealand. I could be wrong about that, but I have no memory of them ever touring here. So yeah. Anyway, all that to say, I got it for 50 cents, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Because these things from my youth, where I want to kind of not relive, because I never lived it in the first place, but at least get the chance to listen to this music that I had a vague interest in back then. And then you do it and you think, oh, well, that didn't live up to what I thought it would be. Well, that did. That's exceeded my expectations, or whatever else. So yeah. By the way, if you've listened this long, I doubt it, especially the people who I was going to. I've never removed any comment from any video. Like, I see sometimes comments disappear, and they don't have any profanity or swear words, or they're not like threatening or anything. But sometimes I'll get a notification that a comment has been put up, and then I'll go to read it and it's not there anymore. It just says 0 comments. Or sometimes I will read it and then go to reply to it and it disappeared. And that's not me. I don't give a shit what anyone comments. Because someone, there's actually a few comments recently basically saying, why are you talking about this shit? Who cares? Which is a fair point. But yeah, I could say the same thing to the commenter. Who cares? Does it, you're not going to be forced to watch this, are you? You would have like literally had to click on it. Unless you're kind of, it's on a queue. Sometimes when you're watching YouTube and like the next video queues up automatically, maybe that caused some frustration for someone. They were like listening to something that they were enjoying while working around the house, having YouTube on the background, and then it finished, and then my voice came on talking about the Cake album from 1996, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And why is he talking about this shit? Who cares? Doesn't he have anything better to do with his life? The answer to that is no, I don't. I really, really don't. Especially right now because my family is visiting another country. So I guess I could watch Netflix or something. But yeah, I like to make the videos. Is the overall thing I want to say. And if you don't like it, well, I'm sorry, but yeah, just don't watch it. But yeah, you don't need to comment and tell me that you don't like it. That sounds like a lot of effort. By the way, you're shit, like that kind of stuff. I kind of have a inkling of that in the back of my mind anyway. You know, when I finish these videos, do you think I go, that was a great one? Usually I'm like, oh my. So, about half the things I record, I never post because I think they're so terrible. So you can think, well, if you know it's terrible, then why you post it? Well, yeah, it's because I want to. We're all free to do things. That's the modern age, isn't it? The legend of modernity. Anyway, yeah, we'll leave it there. 31 minutes on Fashion Nugget by Cake. Thank you for watching.